This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
This meeting tonight is being recorded and broadcast by eMedia on Charter Channel 193 and live streaming on their webpage, easthamptonmedia.org. Councilors or participants in these meetings are gathering hybrid on their order extended until March 2025, which allow us to do so. I remind both the member of the City Council and the public participating remote remain mute until recognized by the City Council President. Also, for the member of the public, please remove your camera for the duration of the meeting unless you are participating in the public speak time or the public hearing. Thank you. This meeting is now called to order. Barbara.
Connie Denham. Here. Salem Derby.
Present.
Omar Gomez.
Here.
J.P. Kaczynski.
Here.
Dave Munier. Tom Peak.
Here.
Brad Riley.
Here.
Dan Rist.
Here.
Owen Zarrett.
Please stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will take a motion to approve the minutes from March 15.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the minute from March 15. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Barbara?
Connie Denham. Abstain. Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
J.P. Kaczynski.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Abstain.
Dan Rist.
Aye. We have 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5. Motion passes. Public speak time. This is for the opportunity to the public to address any concern to the council. I will allow you to talk to the council. You have 3 minutes. Please go to the podium, state your name and address, and just please talk to the council.
My name is Denise Ducharme. I'm the newly elected president of the Easthampton Tenants Organization. I am bringing to you this evening, to the city councilors, the attention to what we are been going forward with the ETO, dealing with the regarding issues of ongoing senior abuse and situations in our housing communities. We have some tenants here that are very concerned, as well as myself. The last week we attended the Easthampton Housing Board of Directors meeting, and over the past year we had brought concerns to the DHCD, to Representative Carey's office, and I have a lot of these concerns here which I'm going to provide to you folks for review. As what happened last week with the board, Joe McCoy and the board refused to review these documents because they were anonymous and not signed. Well, our residents are in fear of signing these type of documents, and there's a lot of these documents that I think somebody needs to review. I don't know how we can successfully work with the housing authority when they've defaced us and don't even want to know or review what's been going on with the residents for years. So I am here with these documents for your review, and we want the harassment and retaliation to stop by the ED that she's brought forward for many years. I've only been there 3 years, but as you all may remember, the vexed housing article that was in a year ago last March. So we've all been working hard at getting some issues resolved, which at this time we were very discouraged about the Easthampton Housing Board that would not even acknowledge or read these documents. So I'm placing them in your hands for a review. Also, just want to mention that a lot of homeowners and taxpayers in the community have voiced to me their concerns about their tax dollars paying for someone who's been so abusive to our seniors and elders. It's clearly been an abuse of power, and I hope we can get some help or resolve on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Do I have the originals? Thank you.
I'm Jim O'Donnell. I live in Cliffview Manor. And my issues with the housing authority are many besides what you're looking at now. I have stories to tell. I have documentation to provide upon just request. That's a phrase I made up, and it means I'm happy to deliver, but let's not waste my time. I am challenging you to take an interest. I said those words to the Housing Authority at their board meeting a couple of months ago, and that was recorded as demanding something be done. But I am simply challenging you to take an interest. I cannot convince you of anything that you or they are not open to hearing. If I use words like, the words are escaping me, they're so highfalutin, I don't talk like this every day. Extortion, fraud, theft. If I use those words and they are not true, that would be slander, libel. But when I start to use those words in the public, they are not defamatory if they are true. So I would very much like for people to take an interest while they still can, please.
Thank you. Anyone else?
No?
My name is Marie DuPont, and I live at Cliffview. I've been there for 13 years. The place looks absolutely awful. She has taken no interest. They have cut down all of our trees, and what they haven't cut down, they've mutilated. The grounds they look like we live in Holyoke or someplace. But I think that what they need is a whole new board. Because the board of directors that we have right now, one of the board of directors, he doesn't do anything. He sits there, never says a word, and claims that his job is only to sign the checks. We have 2 people on the board, 2 women. They are the only 2 that listen and do anything on our board, on their board of directors. So I think it would be a good idea if we could just eliminate the board, except for those 2 women. I mean, not that because they're women they should be there, but at least they take an interest and they accept the paperwork that we give them. They look at it, they talk about it, nobody else does. So I don't know if you can do anything about that, but it would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi.
You have 3 minutes. Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, my name is Teresa Guerra, and I live at 33 Echo Lane at Cliffview Manor. And I just wanted to say something that happened to me, okay? I moved in August 1st of last year, and on August 9th, I was on my front porch talking to my neighbors, and I had grab bars. For some reason, they had left the grab bars up from the person before me, and they were situated poorly. Anyway, I was hitting my arm on these grab bars all the time. So my neighbor said, well, call the office and have them removed. Because I said, I'll just take them on myself, and they said, you can't do that. So I called the office, and I called on speakerphone, because I always use speakerphone. And they told me in the office that I should just live with it, okay? So when I hung up, my neighbors got all together, and they took them off for me. I mean, they went and got screwdrivers, and they took them all off for me. That night, at 9:36 that night, my key got stuck. Now, this is 9 days after I moved in. My key got stuck in the door, and I couldn't get it out in the lock. So, and it was supposed to be fixed when I had been shown the apartment that it didn't work, and they said they were going to fix it before I moved in, and they never did. So anyway, my key got stuck, and I was talking to my neighbors again, and they said, well, you should call because it's a safety issue. And I said, well, after the way they treated me this morning, I really, I was reluctant to call them again. But they said, well, you have to, you'll get this, the answering service, so it won't be so bad. So I said, okay, so I called, and the answering service right away responded, sent a maintenance person to my house and got the key out. The next morning, the maintenance people came to change the locks, and on their little work order, they added the grab bars onto this work order. And they came, and the grab bars were, of course, already down. And they said, well, who did this? The guy came up to me, and I said, well, I was afraid to rat out my neighbors, but my neighbor took the blame or credit for whatever. And he said, that's okay. I'll just say I did it. And he left. Anyhow, when they changed the locks, I wouldn't call the office for any reason unless there's a fire or a flood, because the way you get treated there is the way I just told you. Just live with it. So I went to the board to say this, what I'm telling you now, and they kind of fluffed it off like they didn't believe that would happen. The office wouldn't do that. The office did that, okay? So you can't get anywhere with the office. You can't get anywhere with the board. So I'm just telling you this, something has to be done. Because what are you supposed to do if you're a tenant there? I mean, Anyway, just want to let you know this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone that participating remote? Want to say something? I just want to explain, we are not engaging with you on the public speak time because we are not allowed to, for open meeting law. But I just want to say that I like Holyoke. I have a great community, just for the record. What time is that?
6:11.
6:11. Communication for elected officials. Councilor Riley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. So first I want to make a point of clarification regarding something that was brought to my attention. So on Monday, I spoke at a gathering here at Payson Avenue, urging the school committee to release details of their executive session to put to rest a one-sided narrative of how a job offer was rescinded. In my comments, I said the school committee could vote right now to release the details of their executive session. So a member of the public pointed out to me that those votes can only happen during a scheduled school committee meeting and not at the moment that I made the remarks. And they're absolutely correct. I'm naturally a very introverted person, and that was the largest group that I'd ever spoken in front of before, so my nerves got the best of me, and I may not have been as clear or exact in the comments as I had intended. I don't say this as an excuse, but simply to offer an explanation. The point stands, elected bodies cannot deliberate when they choose. It must be during a scheduled public meeting, and for that, I was wrong. Second, some weeks ago, students from the Easthampton High School came to our meeting to request mandatory trainings of all city staff on unconscious biases, and yes, even microaggressions. I want the students to know that the recent events regarding school leadership have not deterred my commitment to you. More than ever, I'm resolved to introduce an ordinance that mandates training for all of us. I don't do this because I have an agenda of forcing people to do something that they don't want to do, but because our children demand better of us, and we owe them a world that they want to grow up in. The world that they want to live in is more inclusive and a world where everybody belongs. Globalization, advances in travel, and the creation of the internet means that we're interacting with people regularly with whom we haven't had the time to learn about each other's differences. Offending people, misspeaking, or learning about differences at a faster or slower pace than one another is nothing to be ashamed of if we meant no harm in our offenses. It is a side effect of a society that is evolving at a faster rate than we can individually keep up. These trainings will give us the tools to become better communicators, to have more compassion for our mistakes, and to learn from one another on how to be better neighbors so that we can meet the needs of future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Riley. Any other councilors? Mayor LaChapelle, have something for tonight?
No, I don't.
Thank you, Mayor. I will take a motion to open public hearing.
I'll move. Second.
We have a motion and a second to open public hearing. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Barbara?
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Motion passes. Councilor Rist.
Thank you, Mr. President. I will be asking the board, the council to continue this item this evening, and I'll explain why. The Rules and Government Relations Committee received a resolution written by Councilor Zaret, which dealt with creating a bee city. It dealt with pollination and also native gardens, etc. One of the aspects of that resolution was to create an ad hoc committee of the city council. I felt at the time, as well as the committee also felt, that that was unnecessary, and I personally asked that we consider expanding the purpose of such a Beyond Bees to sustainability, which led us to this committee. I asked Councilor Zaret to write the ordinance and to create the committee. It's an advisory committee. But rather than get into the details of that, I asked him if he would like us to continue this so that he could speak to it. He is at a Passover tonight, so he would not be able to attend. So I'm going to, when the president pleases, continue this so that we could explain it further at the next meeting.
Thank you, Councilor Rist. But first, because we published this as a public hearing, is anyone from the public that want to make any comment about this one, about this ordinance? Seeing none, Councilor Rist.
I move that that we continue the public hearing on the Biodiversity, Environment, and Ecological Sustainable Committee, the creation of that committee, to the next meeting, which is April 19th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to continue the public hearing for April 19 at 6:15 at these chambers. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara?
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Motion passes. Councilor Rist?
No, this is.
No, I'm sorry, Councilor Derby.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that we have something here in front of us tonight that's very exciting. So what we have is an ordinance which has been called the Vacant Building Ordinance. This was submitted to us through the EDIC. There are other communities in Massachusetts that understand the importance of having a vibrant business district and trying to find ways to mitigate vacancies on the overall economy and liveliness of a city. And we recognize that as well. So this ordinance is aimed at trying to tackle a few different issues that we find ourselves dealing with here in Easthampton, which is having our Main Street corridor of Main Street, Union, and Cottage having quite a few vacancies. I think if you go to Main Street, you'll notice the vacancies a little bit more profoundly, and that does have an impact on our economy and the feel of Easthampton. And I'm hoping that this is going to be something that we can use to, one, show and highlight the buildings that are vacant in Easthampton for people that are interested to come and start a business here. And two, to be able to motivate landlords to be able to get a little bit more aggressive to find ways to lease or rent or otherwise occupy spaces that are currently empty. One of the exciting pieces of this ordinance is we did have a lot of discussion with the EDIC, within our committee, with the planning department, and a piece of this would be to allow landlords that are currently trying to find a tenant to be able to have a community art display within the front facade to kind of mitigate the emptiness. And so that's kind of an exciting piece of this. This was the result of a lot of collaborative work over many months, and it went through many iterations. And I feel like this is an ordinance that could potentially do some really positive things in the city. I do want to just back up one step to say, one of the things that this ordinance does is establish a registry of vacant buildings. That registry would be on the Easthampton website. That registry would be able to be used for people that are looking to locate here. I think I neglected to say that before. So this passed our committee 3-0, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Any council have any questions? Councilor Rest.
Just want to know, first of all, this is an excellent, and I want to thank the EDIC especially for presenting it. One thing I like is when our committees, our advisory committees, actually get us to do this good work. What is, Councilor Derby, this is primarily for the public, what is the enforcement action that's in the ordinance and the consequence of failure to abide by the ordinance by a landlord?
Okay, so there are, this is a balance of sticks and carrots.
Gotcha.
And so there would be a cost to register your vacant storefront because the registry is going to cost money to build out and to maintain. Now, the person responsible for enforcing this ordinance would be the building commissioner. We did work collaboratively with the building commissioner to make sure that this was going to be agreeable. I know it. It's in my brain.
Okay.
And so the fee would be $500 for the first year to be on the registry. The second year, the fee would go up to $750, and the third and subsequent years would be $1,000 a year to stay on the registry. That it would be if the storefront stays vacant. Now, we also, and I'll give Councilor Pete credit on this, we also increased the fee if the vacant building is condemned. And so there are pieces within this ordinance to address condemned buildings that are empty because we know that those are a risk to public safety, that those are a risk as far as blight. And so there would be an additional fee for a vacant condemned building. And now, as far as, does that answer your question?
I'm assuming, I don't think you used the word mandatory when you talk about the fee.
So,
the landlord is mandated to join this registry at $500 the first year.
This is if you have a vacant storefront in the business corridor, then you are required within 60, that's the one thing I don't remember, it's either 30 or 60 days
Whatever.
to register with the city. And if you don't, then there is a fine. And that fine will be counted as a lien on the property if it's not. 90 days.
Okay.
And so we do have a registry already of the vacant storefronts and the owners. And so that will be used to kind of send the letters out. We did put an effective date of July 1. And I'm trying to think if there's any other pieces to that. Okay, great.
Any other councilor have any questions or comments about this?
Looks like JP might.
Councilor Pick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to speak in favor of this. We did a lot of hard work on it to try and particularly make sure that we didn't repeat some mistakes that we've made in the past in terms of setting out a regulatory framework without checking whether the relevant departments had the capacity to enforce it, and just making sure that we really understood step by step, who would recognize whether a building is vacant, and once they did, how would you? What's the actual process? How does this play out? And so I feel pretty confident about what we have. In terms of the actual numbers for the fees, if anything, I think they're a bit low, but I think this is good to get this framework and see how it works. We can always adjust numbers later if we feel like an incentive is or is not working, if we feel it's too harsh or that it's not getting people's attention. I just think that a really important thing that we need to keep in mind, particularly at this time in our economic moment as a region, not just a city, is that what is going on in these buildings has an effect on all the other buildings. It has an effect on the homes around the buildings. And you really don't have to look any further than one town over into Northampton to see what a bunch of vacant buildings downtown can do to a local economy. And so, I think that there's a reason why, you could say, well, it's their building. Why don't they just let them do whatever they want? To some extent, I see that point. But I do think that if you put people in a situation where For whatever reason, they decide that it's easier to sit on a piece of property rather than put a tenant in who would then bring people in who interact with other businesses and create sort of a civic life. There's a cost to that, to everyone, every taxpayer, every business, every stakeholder in this community, of those just sort of black holes that can emerge from an absentee landlord. And for that reason, I think this is a great idea. I think it's an idea that will likely require some fine tuning over the years as we try it and we see what the response is and what the impact is. And I wouldn't be, if we are back here in a year saying, hey, we want to make these tweaks to this, I wouldn't see that as necessarily a failure. It's a new thing that we're trying. But I do think that it's something that we need to start trying, because we're never going to figure out how to do it right without giving something a shot, and I think this is probably as good of a first shot as we're going to get.
Thank you. I think Councilor Kuczynski.
Oh yeah, I'll go after him.
Councilor Kuczynski.
I know everybody's been working very hard on this, so I congratulate everyone for getting it to the table. I did have just some questions about, and I guess maybe if you could say that this was run by legal, I just want to be sure that any charges that we have, any fees, for some, $500 could be onerous. For others, it could be a drop in the bucket. And just wanted to be sure we were being fair to everybody. Certainly we do not, I can appreciate the impact on other businesses and the community in general. But tell me, if you could tell me, Counselor, what legal says about this.
Councilor Derby.
So this was reviewed by the city attorney, and we integrated some of the changes the city attorney suggested. But I'm glad Councilor Kuczynski asked that question, because that was going to be my comment, which is what we built into the ordinance, a kind of process for waivers. So an economic hardship waiver. There's the ability, if you don't want to, if you want to display art, that would waive you from the registration fee. And I think another thing that's important to know about the waivers is that, hold on, let me just see. Yeah. So waivers would be given for the full amount of the registration fee. And so if someone wasn't able to pay and it was legitimate, then they would not have to pay. And there was another piece of that that's going to come to me, so I'll let other people, maybe Tom can remember what I was thinking, but I got thrown off a little bit. So go ahead, Tom, or President Gomez, I guess you'll give him the go ahead.
Oh, yeah. The other thing that we did determine when we were talking about this is that the council does retain in this the right to temporarily suspend this at any time. Like if we ended up in like a devastating recession where there seriously was just like it was clearly like widespread. There was just no new businesses starting up right now. We would have the ability to say suspend this or suspend the fee portion of it if we wanted for a year or whatever, if it just became clear that it wasn't really fair to ask people to find suitable tenants at that time. The other thing I just wanted to say when it comes to the legal stuff is that, just for context, we are not by any means the first community to attempt something like this. There aren't a ton of communities in Western Massachusetts that have tried this, but out east, this is a fairly common thing, and we did consult a number of other ordinances in developing this one, including ones in New Bedford and Arlington and a few other communities that escape me right now.
Thank you, Councilor Peak. Councilor Kuczynski, that answer your questions?
That answered that question. I did. Could you discuss the standards a little bit more for the waiver, please? I know you said if somebody put art, that might qualify for a waiver, likely would. Just so we could understand that what the standards are and how they are fairly applied. Because if one gets a waiver and somebody else doesn't, well, I think that would be not only unfair, but set the city up for problems. And who defines that if it hasn't been already defined?
Yep. So substantial financial hardship, agreeing to display public art, or by demonstrating the vacant building is being improved for future use. So if they have an active building permit, then they can receive a waiver because they're actively trying to make that space better and, hopefully more ready for a tenant.
And what about anybody interpreting whether somebody, the enforcement officer, I guess again, was the building commissioner, for determining whether they're deserving of a waiver, they would issue the waiver?
So the building commissioner would use their discretion to request the required documentation.
The required documentation to grant a waiver?
Yep.
Those are my questions. Again, congratulations on putting together a program, and let's try it out.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other Councilor? Councilor Denham.
I just have a quick question, and you may not be able to answer it. I really appreciate the efforts on everybody's part to create this, and I think it's really great that you offered them potential solutions. So I think the presentation of art, I think, is a brilliant idea, right? But I'm also wondering, are there any resources that are offered to folks? Councilor Pete said, well, if they don't know what to do and it just sits, well, then it just sits, right? So are there any opportunities of collaboration that they could speak to other business owners, or I'm forgetting the name of the office now, on business registries, et cetera, where whoever owns that business can also maybe collaborate or speak to or ask. I'm just trying to generate ideas of possibilities that business could, or that space could become X, Y, or Z, just as a way of not only, I think there's an element of, well, you said stick and carrot, right? Like of pushing them into that, but I just want to make sure that we're also helping to find solutions for them to generate those ideas of being able to identify possibilities for that space.
Councilor Pete.
Well, one way in which I think we are helping to form a solution is that we're forming this registry. Because I think there's a lot of spaces right now. I can actually say this from experience because I've been helping some friends to try and find a space for a small business for the last 6 months. It's been infuriating, but there are a lot of vacant spaces right now in Easthampton where I could not I could spend the whole day on the internet. I couldn't tell you who owns them, how to contact that person, what they want in rent, what the square footage of the space is like, what it's zoned for. Like, there's just, that information just isn't there. You just pass empty storefront and there's nothing. There's no way I could even give that person a call to say, hey, I noticed that's empty. Like, would you be interested in a tenant that does this kind of thing? Like, I have to you have to go to crazy lengths to even track down, go to the assessor's page and figure out that person and then see if maybe their cell phone information is on their LinkedIn page. It's not reasonable. And so one thing that I would hope, and that would be fairly easy for us to do, should such a registry exist, is for either a member of this council or the mayor or the planner or the building commissioner, somebody to just make sure that, for instance, the Chamber of Commerce and the various, like the LGBT Chamber of Commerce, the other more specific chamber, like regional chambers of commerce, that all those types of organizations are aware of this registry, so that if they are speaking to a person, and realtors too, that if they have a client who says, hey, look, I really want to open up a little whatever in Easthampton, they say, oh, well, look on this website. It has all the vacant downtown storefronts. And so I think that really will be, if anything, more than the fines. I think that just having that available so that, these building owners are at least getting some calls and saying, would you consider this kind of thing? My hope is that just that information is really important. I'm an economist in economics. Like, you can't have a functioning market without good information between the buyers and the sellers. And right now we don't have that. So I think in facilitating this, we're actually working to potentially correct a failure in our markets.
I'll answer your question. Any other question before Councilor Derby? Councilor Derby?
I think that was a great answer, Tom. You took all my
think it was
points.
brilliant.
I would just add, there's one other resource that I would throw into that mix, which would be the EDIC, which is the group that brought that to us, which is the city committee, and has a lot of knowledge and intelligence on this particular topic. So, I think that would be the only other thing that wasn't included in that answer.
Another brilliant answer. Thank you.
Councilor Kaczynski?
I just was wondering if there was any particular use of the funds that may be collected as charges that could be applied specifically to this program of advancing opportunities for people to learn more about various sites. Maybe that's part of what we're talking about, or must everything go to the general fund?
So we did talk about that, and I think our initial thought in committee was that we would like to see these funds go to the building commissioner for the enforcement and for the building commissioner's time, and because this, getting this off the ground is going to be a time commitment, is going to be another responsibility for the building department. And so one of the things that we discussed was having a fund, proposing a fund specifically for the revenue from this that could then be, and so before this takes effect, look to see an agenda item being submitted for a fund, for these particular funds to then be used by the building department. I can't remember what it's exactly called. That type of revolving account, I guess. So that was our plan, is before this takes effect to have a revolving account for the funds to be able to be used by the building commissioner.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Riley?
Yeah, also, Councilor Kaczynski, this isn't written in the ordinance anywhere, but this was an idea that I had, which I'd like to pursue, and maybe you could help further this along, is that the management of the registry could be work that could be done through the senior tax write-off program. And, so perhaps if we could collaborate with, the Council on Aging to see if there's, potential to have somebody come in and do that work as well. So, that would alleviate some of the funds of having to, hire an additional city employee to have to come in and do that work. So, just a creative solution on how to maximize our bandwidth to make this work.
Thank you. Any other councilor before I go to the public? None? Anyone from the public want to make any questions or make any comment? Excuse me. If you're going to talk, you have to go to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Are you going to have 3 minutes again? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Gwen Morrissey, 17 Mayor Street, and Chair of the Easthampton Economic Development and Industrial Commission. And so I'm delighted to be here tonight, having gotten to shepherd this through to you. We will fully take 50% credit. EDIC's efforts to sustain a vibrant economic environment in our city are quite wide-ranging. This particular ordinance has been crafted over the last, I think, 12 to 24 months in order to address one of the most obvious public indicators we have of what our local economy is. So storefronts that are perpetually dark or in disrepair in highly visible places are a strong indicator to anyone who drives through about what our economy looks like. And we've had in recent memory, and on some sites still have, some long vacant storefronts in high traffic areas where we'd ideally have more quote-unquote activated spaces, something more aesthetically pleasing, something more inviting to city residents and visitors. So we are really pleased to have incorporated waiver processes and local art incentives into its implementation. We believe that we've designed a valuable registry feature of those vacant properties that make available spaces much better known to business owners or entrepreneurs who are seeking a new location. We believe that it is workable and fair in its fee structure and its demands on the building commissioner's office. Those conversations were really fruitful. And we look forward as EDIC to helping support its early administration in any way possible. to Councilor Denham's question, this is something that we regularly get inquiries about, and we're able to connect interested people with existing entities, with other business owners, with the chambers of commerce in various ways, and we can continue to do that. And there may be other contours to how we do that. We're just generally very excited to see what new developments this ordinance can bring to our highly visible local landscape. So thanks for bringing it to this point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Please, Joseph.
Jim O'Donnell. This registry is such a great idea, but a lot of it has to do with simply the compiling of information, and nobody really has time for that, do they? Unless someone takes an interest on their own, like a volunteer, so I could do it.
Thank you.
Jeff's got his hand raised.
I know, I'm just waiting for.
Hi, everybody. Kay Collins, Carol of Easthampton. I'm really excited to hear about this, and I just wanted to say, as a longtime Easthampton resident, but a former Worcester resident, I actually saw a really similar program happen in Worcester when we had when there were a lot of vacant storefronts on Main Street in Worcester, in downtown Worcester, and the Denholm building, not the Denham building. Oh. Sorry, Connie. They did some really amazing artist installations, not just with artwork, but also with performance art. So I don't know if that's anything that you all had considered too, or that might come up. But they did some really fabulous installation and performance art installations during street festivals and some other things that happened down there. But it was great, and the artwork was wonderful too. So it really pitched in with the vibrancy of the revitalization of downtown Worcester. So well done, everybody. Just wanted to throw my support behind it.
Thank you.
Great.
Anyone else from the?
Mary Mansara, 359 Main Street. I want to say, first of all, how delighted I am to come back to a city council meeting. It's fun to be here. And I want to say, as a senior work write-off person, or senior whatever, tax write-off, what a great idea. As somebody with a community planning and community development, I raise my hand.
Two volunteers.
Thank you.
Volunteers already.
Good.
Anyone else from the public here? Seeing none, city planner back.
Hi, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes. Yep.
Thank you. So I just wanted to chime in real quick. I've been involved in the ordinance along with the EDIC and the building commissioner. And so I just wanted to make a couple of quick fine points on it. The one major thing I just wanted to highlight for everybody is that we should probably not anticipate this to be a huge moneymaker for the city. And I think that's a good thing. We have some vacancies, but it's not a tremendous amount. So this is kind of that first attempt, as Councilor Peak kind of mentioned, to take inventory, to create a system to hopefully nudge some of these storefronts along. But it's not a terribly long list, and I don't think the process will be actually that overcomplicated. I think one of the things that we will want to monitor is just the annual nature of it. But I do have a good expectation that this will probably nudge a fair number of storefronts forward, which I think is the goal. I did want to respond to Councilor Kwasinski's question, and Councilor Derby did a fine job, but there are some actual written criteria in the waivers. So I think the main one I just wanted to bring up is that waivers granted or denied have to be in writing. And so there'll be a clear indication of a reason or a rationale for whether or not they've been granted. And something that Councilor Peak said was a really good kind of just example. If we expected someone to come in and say it was a financial hardship that they couldn't get their storefront rented, one of the first questions we would ask is, the city would ask is, what are you doing to actively advertise the space? And so if you've got a for rent space and you have it advertised, with realtors or anywhere really, that's a really good attempt. for those spaces that are just dark and never listed anywhere, and there's really no attempt to do anything, that's not going to be enough effort. So that kind of thing. It's a little subjective, but that is a good example. And then the one last comment I had was something that Councilor Denham asked about incentives. The city doesn't really have any financial incentives for small businesses, but we have a couple programs. So the mayor's program, which is going to escape me now. The program that she has initiated for small business consultation to help them create business management plans and such is something that we have. And then a couple of years back at the beginning of the pandemic, we really relaxed our zoning requirements so that if you have a vacant storefront, you just need to start consultation with the building department to figure out how to get in there. You don't need a 3-month-long, $700 special permit just to get into an existing space. So we use those tools to try to help make it easier for storefronts to get occupied. So those are the quick things I just wanted to chime in.
Good. Thank you. Councilor Kuczynski.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification, Jeff. Of course, it stimulates another question, and that would be if the information is in writing regarding a waiver denial or acceptance approval, would that information become a matter of public record? Is it something accessible? Can we make it available to other people so that they are familiar with the process? I know at some point, some communities put information like that on the website. I'm not necessarily suggesting that we go that far, but just something that the public could say, geez, I'd like to look at the file on that. Is that something that is planned? Whoops.
Jeff?
Great question. I would say if we're going to be putting a document in writing, it should be made fairly available. So I don't think there's a problem with that in terms of keeping a log for each property. I think the only question is whether we would post that specific letter online, but we have treated things like this similarly to just post it, save people from the process of doing a Freedom of Information request for something that's just a public document anyway. So I don't think that's a big problem. So we just need to build a system. We have until July to kind of get the registry so it's publicly visible, and then we'll send out the letters and we'll start with that. But I don't think that's a huge problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Derby?
Just one other thing I wanted to add. So I know that a lot of our storefronts have apartments above them, and sometimes those apartments can be vacant. So we made a specific exemption for the apartments. This ordinance would only apply to the vacant storefronts. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear.
Thank you. Anyone from the public before I will take the motion?
Hello, my name is Liz, and I live in Ward 3, and in theory, I'm all about art, and I love this idea, but a little part of me, and I just want to throw this out there just to keep it in everyone's mind, there is such a thing as art washing, and I love the idea of using abandoned spaces for artists, but when it's like a town-run thing to make the town look more prosperous than it actually is, when there isn't housing for people that already live here to be in, it makes me nervous that we're trying to draw in more people when we have problems housing the people that already exist. So it's just an idea. I love art, I love all that, but just food for thought. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other councilors? If none, before I take the motion, I just want to make a comment. I don't want to misspeak for anyone, but I think the idea of the EDIC and the ordinance committee is, and I think Planner Bag say really clear, we don't want to make money. What we want to see is businesses. We want to have businesses in town that people can go, that people can spend money. That's what we want. That's the idea. And I hope I see that pretty soon. Now we'll take a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to move to add to Chapter 4, Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 5, Vacant Building Ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for adding Chapter 4, Building and Building Regulation, add new Article 5, Vacant Building Ordinance. Any further discussion? Councilor Derby?
Just one last thing, because I think what you said was a great comment, and it spurred another reason why this is important, is because it can provide a space for new jobs in the city. Correct. And I think that's another really important thing for people that live here to be able to work here. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Councilor Rist?
Just another thank you to the EDIC. Without this kind of a committee, and we have a lot of good committees in town, but without your work, this wouldn't have happened. And I thank you very much, because the economic health of our city depends on active, interested citizens who care. And please pass on to the whole committee how much I appreciate this.
Thank you, Councilor Kuczynski.
Mr. President, I just wanted to acknowledge the folks who've come forward to volunteer. We've been doing this a long time, and I can't remember a time when folks have stepped forward and said, hey, gee, I want to help the city right here. Here's a great idea. I'm available. And I would encourage more of that. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking that step forward. And I don't know if the mayor's office or some other office, but I think we can work on this where when there are good ideas and things to be done in the city and we could use volunteers, we could use letters and notes from people, emails, and I'd like to see some sort of movement in that direction to make available, make the connections. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Derby?
I just have one last thing, and this is, I apologize for the omission here. One of the things that we did modify the language from what was in the packet by deleting the definition of the new Easthampton Planning Commission, Easthampton Plan, the new title for the planner. Since it wasn't, we had put that in there because we had the planning department multiple times, and it was just an omission, so we took out that definition. The planning department speaks for itself, so I just wanted to make people aware of that the language that we are voting on is language that doesn't have the definition of that new title, which was not used in the ordinance. So it doesn't affect the ordinance in any way, but it is a little bit different from what was in the packet. So I just wanted to make people aware that that was submitted to the clerk, and that was the only change.
Thank you. Barbara?
J.P. Kuczynski.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye. Motion passes. Councilor Rist?
Thank you. The Rules and Government Relations Committee were tasked by the mayor to reduce the membership of the CRC, the Community Relations Committee, from 11 to 7. As you know, it is required to have a quorum in the room, or whenever you meet, hybrid these days, to act on anything. The CRC is a valuable advisory committee, and without a quorum, they're unable to provide that advice in a legal way. So reducing the membership to 7 gives them much more opportunity, with everybody busy, to have a quorum of 4 rather than 6 when you have 11 members. And I know this for a fact. I'm chairman of the Community Preservation Act Committee, and that has 9 members, and sometimes that's difficult. So we voted 2-0 at the time to approve changing this membership from 11 to 7, and I hope this spurs more active advice from the committee.
Thank you. Any councilor have any questions or comments? Councilor Peak?
Just one question. I apologize for not following this process more closely, but is the issue that there's currently vacancies on that committee that, okay, cool. And they're having trouble filling them? Okay.
You want to answer that?
Just for the public, yes, there are vacancies on the committee, and even with the membership that's on the committee, getting everybody to be able to be in a meeting was difficult.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other question, Councilor Peak? No. Any other councilors? Anyone from the public want to participate?
Hi, I'm Liz, and I live on Ward 3. I'm going to start off just saying it's been a really rough week, and I appreciate everybody that volunteers to be a city official, and especially right now. And so thank you very much for that. So the CRC was a recommendation of this town from the DOJ, and I don't know if this town's really given it the respect that it deserves. And I understand, like, it seems like there's 5 people in the seat with 1 getting sworn in tonight, so that's 6. I just hesitate the idea of bringing it to 7 when there could be people who want to join and make the committee more diverse and bring in fresh voices, and then have them say, no, you can't join because this committee is full. It's horrible that it's only at 5 when it should be 11, but then I'm also, and I hesitate to say this quote because I don't know exactly who said it, but I remember it when I was a child. It's not the person who's supposed to seek the position, it's the position who's supposed to seek the right candidate. So maybe we could strategize as a town a better way to bring in more people to this committee that I think is a very necessary committee, and we shouldn't be cutting it back. We should be going out and trying to find the correct committee. And with that being said, I hope everybody gets home and can relax tonight and maybe play some Assassin's Creed and, have a good night.
Thank you. You want to answer?
Yes, I would only say that we want our committees to actually act legally and give advice to both the council and to the mayor. They can't do that if they don't have a quorum in the room. And secondly, you speak about voices, and I wanted to say that this committee, I'm sure, doesn't stifle any voice that might attend their meeting to suggest or influence the committee. So if there's 7 members and 5 people show up to influence the committee, you're going to listen, just like we listen to you. So I don't think having 7 members will keep anybody from joining. What we need to do is get more members. If you only have 6, you would have had difficulty having a quorum if we kept it at 11. But if you have 6, now you can have 4, and it doesn't prevent others from coming to meetings. So we need to do a better job of advertising what your purpose is and when your meetings are. And we probably could do a better job of that on our website or anywhere we can. But I think to make sure you understand, we want that advice to be appropriately presented from a committee that voted on what that advice should be to give to the council or to the, so having 7 members is a better way of getting that done. Now, that doesn't deny that if you suddenly have a huge amount of interest, that it can't be expanded again. But we want it to be able to function. And that's the primary reason for this, not because we don't see its value, of course. It's just so that it can function. So that's my answer.
Liz, because there's not that many people here that look like they want to participate, I will give you the opportunity to go again. But before you go, I want to let Councilor Riley to make a comment. But you can go. Councilor Riley.
I might be able to answer it.
What's your last name? I just felt like it was directed
He knows that.
Oh, it wasn't.
You just have the conversation here if you want.
So I guess my question, I'm unfamiliar with the inner workings of the Rules and Government Committee. So if we vote on this tonight, is this binding? Or could we in the future do exactly what we're doing right now?
In the future, we can review it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, in the future, we can review it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, if we need to.
Yeah. Liz?
So I guess maybe my fear then is if you just bring it to 7, you're like, cool, quorum, whatever, and you won't advertise it because you'll be like, well, they can function now. And maybe they're functioning with the wrong people because the people, it hasn't been advertised enough for other people to know that this committee exists, to know that we need diversity in this committee to get people to join. I just don't want it to be swept under the rug. I want this was recommended by the DOJ. I want this committee to be treated with respect that I believe that it deserves. And I'm afraid that if you bring it down, then you're going to just kind of maybe forget about it and be like, well, it can function. So keep the pressure on it. Make these people who are a part of it show up to make the quorum. And if they're having trouble, then get more people to join. So there is a quorum, but I don't know if necessarily bringing it down is the correct solution. Thanks.
Thank you. I think none of the councilors disagree with that, right? I think we are we are with you in that statement. But on the other hand, we are worried that this committee is not working because they don't have that many people in the committee, and they don't have a quorum to do business. And to avoid that and to let them do business, that's what we're reducing to 7. That doesn't mean that in the future we can review it and increase the numbers again for the members. Councilor Denham?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say, I totally agree, totally support that, and I think one of the things that President Gomez and I did last Monday, had an event, and we specifically partnered with the CRC and some other community members, and we put on an event, but the specific intent was to uplift and partner with the CRC to give them some FaceTime with the community, as well as being able to talk a little bit about their particular work. And so hopefully we will have some additional things like that, but there's 2 parts to that. One, educating the community and centering issues that we are talking about and trying to educate. And then the other piece of that is also to partner with the CRC to put them in front of people, give them an opportunity to talk about that important work, and hopefully from that generate some interest within that. And so I hear you, and that's a priority.
Thank you, Councilor. Shelby?
Hi, I'm Shelby, and I live in Ward 3 also. I understand, the reasoning for wanting to get the CRC working and get them to a quorum number. But I do just want to also add the comment that we have a population of over 16,000 people, and we definitely need to address some of the internal issues that have kept people from becoming part of the committee and having any desire to be on that committee. It has a pretty well-known reputation within the community of how that committee works internally, and in general how things kind of work internally for the public in relation to this town. And I think addressing those issues we would be able to achieve 11 members with the population size. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Here I am on Sarah, 359 Main Street. I want to support what Liz and Shelby just said. And it seems to me, particularly given the history of the committee and the difficulties it's faced, that to make such a drastic cut in number is really, how am I going to say this? It seems like the issue that needs to be addressed is why the committee has not been a greater success. And I don't think it's going to be a greater success by cutting it so drastically from 11 to 7 people. Because the issue, of course, is why don't people want to be part of it? What's going on? And how to address those issues. And I haven't been part of it, and I have been absent from the city, so I don't know all of the details. But what I do know is that the committee was formed in difficulty, has continued to function in difficulty, and to just sort of throw up our hands and say, okay, it didn't work with 11, now let's go to 7, is not going to solve the problem. So I would recommend, if there has to be a way to get to quorum, try a less drastic cut first. And also, I just don't think it's the case that people can be expected to just show up and voice their opinion. I think that one of the characteristics of our city is that it's not always easy to hear what people are actually saying when they're talking in a different voice. And that's one of the missions of the committee, which is to try to develop a culture where all voices can be heard, whether they're familiar to us or not. So that's just what I would like to say.
Thank you. Anyone else? I see. I always mispronounce his name. I'm
Kayam.
sorry. How is it?
Kayam.
Kayam. Kayam?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I just want to echo some of the comments that were made by some of the people in the room. I think some of the comments by Councillor Rist are actually correct. The community relations committee's comments are really vital, but how valid those comments are when the community relations committee doesn't necessarily represent the demographics, or like if it's only 5 people, how good can that advice be? I guess. So that's just what I'll put out there.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi. Kay again. So, I think there's a fair number of you that know Connie and Brad. You weren't on the council at this point, but Mary and I were part of founding the Easthampton Community Coalition a while back, and it was during the time of the Sanctuary City debate and prior to the Attorney General coming in and investigating the school, and prior to the Department of Justice coming in. And it's been a pattern of events that have taken place in the city that the Department of Justice came in to investigate. And that the Community Relations Commission was founded on the basis of, and it's not that there hasn't been any action and folks coming in to take action to address, but it's something we're still trying to deal with the repercussions of. And I think that cutting the number of people on this commission that was founded as a result of the things that took place in this community is not really what we're going to, it's not what's going to bring us forward, right? So, I think that what the people that have commented ahead of me, I think they're absolutely correct in that. I don't think it's a solution to say, well, we don't have enough people in this, and the city has not come forward to make recruitment. Connie, I wish that I knew about the CRC event that you spoke about. I had no idea. I had no idea. So, if the community is able to come forward, and if we are able to get diverse voices in the room to express their opinion, that's great. But how do we do that? And this is something that the mayor and I have had conversations about. It's something that we've had conversations about in this room. How do we get people in the room? We had, how many people did we have show up at the school committee meeting yesterday to just shout at people? We had over 300 people show up for a meeting because it was an inflammatory, situation that people were passionate about. But when it's something that we, as a community, need to address, when it's an everyday issue that's been going on for a long time and we've lost momentum about it, how do we get people in the room, right? How do we do that as a city? How do we get people to participate? So I think that we maybe need to think about that more than we need to think about cutting the numbers because we're not getting that participation. Right?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilor Rist?
Just so you know that I listen, I'm going to make an amendment after the motion has been put forward to change it to 9 members, so we don't go.
I'm sorry, Councilor Rist, but we are not allowed. Because by administration code and the charter, we only can approve or disapprove the administration code.
Okay, I stand corrected. Then I will state again that I think having a functioning committee is as important as its membership. So I'm going to have to say I have to stay with 7, but if you can come back with, say, 9 soon, I think this council will listen. But I've listened already tonight. So we could come back and do this immediately. But I also know that recruitment has 2 sides of it. All of you that want this to happen, plus us, we need to work better at getting more membership. So I'm gonna say 7 so that you can have functionality.
Councilor Denham.
Tom had his hand up first.
Councilor Denham.
Sorry, Councilor Pete. So I'm just going to say this, and I voted for this with the intention of trying to make it, put them in a position of being able to act. But given what people have said, I hear that, and I'm not going to support this evening, and I'm going to be joining the appointments committee with Councilor Riley, and I am committed to working on this and trying to do more recruitment for it, and also working with exploring kind of the underlying reasons why this committee's makeup is what it is, and how do we address that. So I heard you, and I will work on that, and I'm committed to that.
Thank you. Councilor Peak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have sort of mixed feelings about this because on one hand, 11 is just a big number for a volunteer committee. Like, I think that everything that folks have said is there's a validity to it. I think, and I'll get to that in a second, but I just also think it's worth mentioning that when we're looking at our committees and our volunteer committees in the city, I don't have the stats in front of me, but 11 is definitely on the high side for a voting policy committee. You've got things like the Manhattan Rail Trail Committee that, sort of people floating out, but it's largely a vehicle for coordinating like volunteer efforts. But when it comes to like sort of these sort of voting committees, 11 is definitely on the high side. I think that there's a reason, you could reasonably say that there's a reason for it to be on the high side because you want a lot of different perspectives there, but it is on the high side. And the reason why that does present a problem is that the world is tough and people have trouble finding time to do stuff, and especially stuff that doesn't pay. So finding qualified volunteers who want to give their time to, stressful unpaid work is hard. And on that basis, I could see myself voting for this. The one thing that I do sort of wish I had more information on before I cast a vote, and where I'd almost want to float the idea of talking about continuing this just because I don't feel like I have enough information, is sort of what the internal challenges have been. I mean, I think that all of us who were here 2 years ago remember that things got pretty intense around appointments to that committee, or it became sort of a cultural flashpoint where when a person was appointed, and people who, if that person had a sort of high profile presence one way or another, a lot of folks would show up to say you can't have that person because blah blah, and it got kind of intense, and I could definitely see that being a disincentive for people wanting to participate. And I also think to be honest, that the fact that I haven't seen anything from the committee in a really long time, and that's probably like, if somebody called me up today and was like, hey, which of these 3 committees should I be on, and that's one of them, frankly, I'm not sure I'd recommend it because I never see anything from it, and I'm not sure that, I just don't have a good assessment of whether that's something that someone should put a lot of their time into. That sounds rude to say, but just, I'm just saying, like, I think that there is a chance that potentially, if you could just get a quorum, you can start producing, then that maybe has a big thing. But I do feel like I'm a little nervous to make a lot of decisions on this until I feel like I have a better understanding of what what are the issues that are holding back recruitment and that are holding back participation? And if ultimately the answer is, well, it's just hard to get 11 volunteers for something, then fine. But I just hearing what folks have said, there is a part of me that's a little concerned that we might be missing other parts of that story. So I would just want to float the idea of potentially, if we don't feel really certain that the issue is just that it's too many seats, that maybe we should continue and ask some people about it. It's just a thought.
Thank you, Councilor Riley.
Yeah, so I want to echo what Councilor Denham said. I was on the fence about the reduction in the seats. I understand the procedural pieces that you brought up, Councilor Rist. In my role as understanding the folks who are on all of the committees, I get regular updates on the status of all the committees and to see what seats are open and who's filled what seats. It was, in my opinion, that the Community Relations Committee is not fulfilling its obligation. It is a very white organization right now, and it's not to say that white people don't have a role in this type of work. It's essential that they need to be there. Where my challenge with this reduction is that if we go down to 7 members, then that means that even if we recruit people of diverse backgrounds to fill the remaining seats, they are still at a disproportionate minority comprised on the group. And of course, I recognize that Easthampton in general has a chasm of diversity that it needs to address. But the need to address these issues should make room for the voices of the people who are being left out and who are disenfranchised. So that's my reason for not wanting to support the number coming down as far as it is. I would be in favor of starting with 9, and I know that we can't do that tonight. So my intent for tonight is to say no, or not yet, rather. And that I give my commitment to the community as the chair of the appointments committee to work with Councilor Denham, obviously you as well, Councilor Gomez, you are also on the appointment committee, to start to look at some of these issues and start considering what role the appointment committee can have in the recruitment, onboarding, and retention of our community boards. So that's all I'll have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kosinski?
Thank you, Mr. President. I think the folks who came to speak today have made excellent points, and it gives me pause about voting yes to a reduction without at least understanding the subject a little bit better and the reasons. For example, I didn't hear anyone talk about the number of meetings that had to be canceled because there wasn't a quorum. And if someone said, geez, for the last 6 months, we haven't been able to meet and do anything because nobody ever shows up and we don't have a quorum. And we would if we were able to reduce it to 7, and then 4 would represent a quorum. That would influence me more if we were able to speak to some numbers, have some frame of reference. Again, as with other counselors who've spoken tonight, I think that an interim measure of 9 members with 5 being a quorum might be the way to go. In any case, I would be supportive of either a continuance, which would enable us to gather more information, or a vote, and we'll see where the vote lands. But if somebody could answer the question that I had about numbers, that would help for all of us.
Thank you, Councilor Kuczynski. I don't think we have that number, but then we can find out online, the website. Councilor Rist.
Yes, I've heard everybody, and I do want to compromise to 9 because functionality is very important, but we don't have the information. So I'm gonna vote against this evening, and I encourage the councilors to do so because administrative code changes aren't hard for the mayor to resubmit. So I'm going to suggest that the appointments committee meet with the CRC to see, hey, how many times have you met? Get some more information, find out what recruitment you can help with, and secondly, debate and ask the mayor to resubmit the administrative code for 9, because I think that's an effective compromise. 11 is just too many. It really is, because you have to be able to advise, and you can't advise if you can't vote what that advice is. So it's a compromise between functionality, recruitment of the proper diversity of membership. So I'm going to encourage the council to vote this down this evening and ask the mayor to resubmit for 9, or not at all if we feel we can, if the appointments committee feels we can do 11, okay. Because I have, my main thing as a member of the council for all these years is, can we function, can we get government to do its job? And our committees are part of our government. So I am going to encourage the council simply to vote it down, not to continue it, because then we have to continue it, vote on it, and we may not want 7, so then we'd have to do it again. So I'm going to encourage the council to vote this down. We put it in the, I would move it in the positive and then vote it down so that we can get maybe a compromise of 9.
Thank you, Councilor. I just want to say a few things before the other councilors talk. If we make this motion tonight, I will still say yes. And the main reason is because for me, it's clear that we don't have the authority to appoint any members in this committee. We can work really hard to find out the reasons why, but at the end of the day, it's the mayor who's going to appoint people. And if we don't have that in front of us, this committee is not going to have, they're not going to make business. They're not going to work. And that's my biggest concern, why I should, that's why I'm leaning to say yes, because I want them to work for the community. That's my biggest concern. I want to remind the councils that this particular committee, we don't appoint anyone. It's the mayor. The information is out there. The website is clear. They don't meet regularly because they don't have enough people to have a quorum. Right now it's only 5. If they means, I mean, if it means anyone, they don't have a meeting. They cannot have meetings. Everybody's talking about diversity, and I agree 100%. 100%. I'm the only Latino here. And it was not easy to be here. It was not easy. The process would happen probably that was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when someone of color applied to be in this position, in this particular committee, we, as a council, we give her a hard time. And now we're asking why people is not applying for this committee. The answer is simple. We make it really hard for them. So simple. So going back and forward, why people are not applying for the CRC? We have the answers. We do. If we want to keep it for 11, that's fine. But convince people of color, convince people from the LGBTQ community to apply after they watch that video? That's why I'm leaning to say yes for 7, because I want them to keep working, and eventually I will encourage the mayor to send another request to increase it. Any other councilor? Councilor Derby.
So the pragmatist in me says that we need to make it 7 so we can get some work done. I think Councilor Peak mentioned the fact that he hasn't heard or seen anything come out of the committee necessarily. And so if nothing's coming out, if nothing's happening in the committee, how do you know you want to be on it if there's nothing being generated? And I think that piece is important. I do feel that it is important to have this committee be representative and to have a diversity of members and to have enough members. We're a 9-member body. I think 9's a great number, but I think that could be easily, if we were able to drum up interest and we don't appoint these members. But if we were able to put it out in the community and the mayor was amenable to appointing more members, I would be happy to go back in an instant to change this to 9. And I also, I just want to make sure. I've heard councilors say that they would want to vote this down, and I'll defer to Councilor Rist. But generally, items that we vote down have a cool-off period. And I just want to make sure that if that is something that happened tonight, that cool-off period would not apply to an administrative code as it would to an ordinance or another item. So I'll end with that question.
Councilor Rist?
You are referring to the rule that doesn't allow, it's a rule, not an ordinance, that doesn't allow something to come back, I think it's 6 months.
6 months.
But it's a rule.
No, we can suspend it.
So we can suspend the rule. First, we vote on that, and then we can move to do it. But I want to thank Councilor Gomez. I know I seem wishy-washy, but I am influenced by my fellow councilors, and I'm never going to deny that. You guys make a lot of sense, and I wanted them to be functional, so I wanted 7. So now I'm wondering maybe we should vote it in and let them function. And one of the things they can say to the mayor at a meeting in which they have a quorum is, please make our committee 9. But I don't know. And I'm on the fence now. I was in favor of voting it down. But, you make so much sense, Councilor Gomez, it's hard for me. But
And to add something else that is really important for me tonight, on the City Council President Communications, I'm going to appoint alternates.
Wait, what?
I'm going to appoint city councils as alternates to committees.
Alternate to committees.
Why? Because I want those committees to keep working.
There you go.
That's why I'm convinced to say yes. Because we as a body, we're suffering about that.
Yeah, we have.
Councilor Peaks?
So I floated the idea before, and I'm now going to really propose it. In the past, when we've gotten into these points where this is the sort of view of the city where every time someone's speaking, we've sort of people are changing our minds. These are usually the things that we look back at like a month later, and I'm like, I don't know. So if it pleases you, I would really suggest that if this is where we are, that we really need to think about this further, that we continue this motion, and that'll give us. So, can I make that motion? Is that
before Councilor Riley want to say something? First.
Okay, well, yes. Whenever you have your permission, I am going to make a motion to continue.
You're allowed to make a motion.
And just to finish my point, I just feel like I've been on here long enough that when this is the situation where every time somebody speaks, people's minds are changing. That's the time we should probably move this out of public hearing and get some more facts and some more perspectives before we do anything. That's my thought. So,
Councilor Riley.
Excuse me. Point of order. I think that if any one of us at this time wants to make a motion, that we are free to make that motion.
Councilor Kozinski, I stated that already to Councilor Peak. As a city council president, I told him that he's allowed to make any motion at any time he wants.
Thank you. I may have misheard. I just wanted to be sure that he should feel free to do so.
Thank you. Councilor Riley?
So just two kind of clarifying comments that I'm not disagreeing with you, but I just want to provide a little context here. So yes, I understand that the rules say that the only person that appoints people to the committees is the mayor. That in no way absolves us from the ability to engage in the process to make sure that the recruitment, onboarding, and retention is more effective. So yes, the mayor is the only person who can introduce new appointees. That doesn't mean that we can't, as counselors, be effective members of the community to reach out to folks and encourage them to apply and then to advocate on their behalf to the mayor. Second point, I have no knowledge of this person who was treated poorly on the committee. Councilor Denham and I were not here when that happened. We have both given our word and our commitment to make the process better. So I just want to leave that out there, that we are both in the position to be able to do things that are better for the community, and whatever it was that happened in the past, and I'm not blaming you all for whatever it was that went down. I don't do that to people.
and it's everything you did.
No, I know. I just wanted to make that clear, that the two people that were not here when that process happened have already given their word that we would do what we can to make this committee work better. Thank you.
So let me clarify a few points.
Yep.
First, I never said that you did. I say as a body, the city council, we did something really bad to someone who applied. When I say really bad was because that interrogation was intense for someone who want to serve in a committee. And I think that would be respectful. And when people watch that video, that is a point that people will say, why I want to apply for this. That was my point. About the appointments, why I said that the mayor is the only authority appointed. I agree with you, 100%. But at the end of the day, the mayor don't appoint anyone. We don't have any authority to bring people to the council, right? To appoint for this committee. So that was my point. I get at the end of the day, people can apply, but it's up to the mayor to appoint it. Right? So that was my point. That I want to clarify that my point is like, I 100% with you. We do it in a few events. We have tables to encourage people to participate and to apply for committees. I think we did that in the past, and I encourage that we should keep doing it because we want the community to participate, 100%. But I just want to be clear too that at the end of the day, is the mayor who's appointing people. Councilor Denham, and then you, Councilor.
So I appreciate everyone's comments. Just to be clear, if this is tabled, great, I'll support that. If it's not going to be tabled, I'm still not going to vote for it. But I think I hear the importance of a functioning committee, and to me, it is a matter of maybe the work of the committee is work on the committee. And so if that is not clear or there is struggle within that, then it seems like that is the priority. And so that is why I'm, again, not going to support that. But it seems to me that the foundation is a little rocky. Mm-hmm. And we as a committee, right, or as a council, I'm using your words now, it is a priority for us to make sure that we have a clear foundation and demonstrate commitment to that. And I think when we are able to demonstrate commitment, then we are able to provide evidence to the committee of their willingness to potentially trust this council again, right? So I've heard, I wasn't there, but it seems like there's a lot of distrust, and the focus should be the work on the committee and not of the committee. So,
Councilor Peak. Thank you.
Mr. President, this time I would make a motion to continue this item. That's my motion.
Second.
To what date?
Mr. President,
point of order.
Continue it to what date?
Yeah, excuse me, I'm the city council president. Let me ask the question because I have the same concerns. You want to make a motion to continue the public hearing, or you want to make a motion to not having a public hearing and send it back to the committee, keep it in the committee?
Well, I think
60
that...
days.
60 days.
days.
Oh, you want to say
60 days
60 days,
from
yes.
the date that we got it.
And the date that we got
Yeah,
it
that
was...
What are you saying, Barbara?
Just one second. 1 second.
Um,
So we have 60 days to take an action
Either vote it or deny it,
since the day that we receive it. And
it's
that
already
was,
been-
according to the charter.
and that was, when was that?
The charter says that.
No, but when we receive this,
March.
that we
March
have
1st.
March 1st. So we have until May 1st, kinda?
Sort of, yeah. And so I guess I'd make a motion to continue this until our next meeting then, because that's really all we can do without it lapsing entirely. I guess if we haven't reached a conclusion at that point, then we can just vote it down or it'll lapse, Or we can,
That's not our rule.
it'll automatically pass, right? Okay.
So we have to make a motion to continue for the next meeting. At the next meeting, we vote one way or the other. If we don't vote, this will pass.
Yes.
All the councilors understand what I said?
Understood.
Yes. We have a motion and a second to continue the public hearing for the next meeting. That's April 17 at 6:15. Any further discussion, Councilor Rist?
I'd like the appointments committee to meet with the CRC. This is not part of the motion, just a request so that we get that kind of information. How much have they had difficulty meeting? How can we do better? But the charter says this we either vote it down or it's automatic. So next meeting, we're going to have to decide.
Councilor Kosinski?
I would ask respectfully that someone bring us the information as to the number of times the committee has tried to meet and has been unable to meet. That information will tell us the validity of saying, hey, we can't do business. And that would influence me greatly. So I would appreciate that information.
Thank you. Any other councilors before I take the vote? Barbara?
Okay. Brad Riley?
No.
This is for continuation.
This is for.
I know.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Dan Rist?
Yes.
Connie Denham?
Yes.
Salem Derby?
Yes.
Omar Gomez?
Yes.
JP Kaczynski?
Yes.
Tom Peak?
Yes.
We have 6 votes, motion passes. Thank you, councilors. I think that was a great deliberation. Yeah, that was amazing. Councilor Rist?
Okay, the mundane issue of dealing with the taxpayers' dollars. We have before us a old bill. What's an old bill? An old bill is something that occurs because the books closed on June 1st, and we got a bill after the fact for something that we're supposed to pay from last fiscal year. This is a bill of $4,624 to pay for the NFP company that is the Benefit Coordinator Services. Apparently, they were supposed to bill us by a quarter, and they did not. They have short staff at NFP and led to late invoices. Is Emily still on the?
She was. I don't know if she's still here.
If anybody has any questions, our Human Resource Director can answer them.
She's not here.
Otherwise, it is just an old bill. We have to pay the old bills. It's a simple thing.
Councilor Peak. I'm sorry, I'm taking notes.
I just want to say, because we've discussed this a couple of times, but I always want to reiterate, this is something that we did budget for.
Yes.
It was not billed, so we didn't spend it, which meant it rolled over into free cash, and now we're using free cash to pay it. So it's not like it's just like, this is money we thought we were going to spend, and we didn't. We put it aside, and now we're spending it. But like, it's all just whatever.
That's a great explanation. Any other councilors? So, anyone from the public have any comment or questions about this appropriation? Seeing none, Councilor Rist.
I move the full council approve a supplemental appropriation of $4,624 to be transferred from free cash. $4,624 to be transferred to professional services account. $4,624 for the purpose of paying a prior fiscal year bill for NFP Benefit Coordinator Services for the contract year November 2021 to October 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the supplemental appropriation of $4,624 for the fiscal year 2022 old bill NFP Benefit Coordinator Services. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara?
Dan Rist?
Aye.
Connie Denham? Aye. Salem Derby?
Aye.
Omar Gomez?
Aye.
JP Kaczynski?
Aye.
Brad Riley?
Aye.
And Tom Peak?
Aye.
Motion passes. Councilor Rist.
We have another supplemental appropriation, which I believe is also an old bill, $704.81. It has to do with Verizon. Apparently, there were some accounts that the Verizon went to the wrong address. They did add late fees, but I've discovered that Mass General Law doesn't allow us, or means we don't have to pay late fees, so we don't pay late fees, which is nice. I wish I had that particular law in my favor. Anyway, IT Director Karen Comerford, I think she's still on the call if you have any questions. But this is a $700 bill to Verizon.
Any councilors have any question before I let Karen to speak? Seeing none, Karen?
Yeah, just sharing with you how complicated it is to manage all the multiple accounts that we have with Verizon. DPW has an account, police has an account, fire has an account, school have multiple accounts, we have multiple accounts in the city and safety. Some of those numbers are used in fax, some of those numbers are used for alert systems or on the elevator. It has been really hard to understand the billing and to really know that we're paying for numbers that are actively used. And this is because of the history of how we added accounts and numbers. So, I apologize for not picking this $700 before, but it's almost an impossible task to keep track of all of them. So we're slowly trying to bring all of those accounts into the IT department so we have one department that can view all of our accounts across the system.
Thank you. Any councilor have any questions for Karen? Seeing none. Anyone from the public have any comment or questions? Seeing none, Councilor Rist.
I move that the full council approve a supplemental appropriation. The amount is $704.81 to be transferred from free cash to the FY22 computer telephone account, $704.81, to pay for invoices mailed to Verizon, and to IT department is taking necessary steps to ensure that this oversight does not happen again in the future.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the supplemental appropriation of $704.81 for the fiscal year 2022 all bill Verizon payment. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara?
Connie Denham. Aye. Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Aye.
Motion passes. Councilor Rist.
The next 7,500 appropriation is really important. Apparently, there's regulation that our 911 calls are supposed to be able to locate where that call is coming from. And unfortunately, we don't have the software and the hardware, I guess, and Corinne will explain further, to do this. So it's very important that public safety can locate a 911 caller who may not be able to indicate where they are. And this software has been available. We should do this yesterday. So Finance Committee did vote 2-0 to approve this.
Karen, do you want to add something?
Yes, just sharing information. There is a law, Ray-Bound Act and the Carries Law, that requires us to have a phone system when you dial 911, it gets you to 911 without having to press any preceding numbers to get you out. And this law came from a little girl that was trying to call 911 from a location where she needed to dial 9 before getting to 911. So it's now a law, and we need to be in compliance with that, so that our safety complex is not in compliance. It's concerning, because this is where our 911 calls come. So I'm looking forward.
Thank you. Councilor Derby?
So I just want to be clear. It seems like this would apply to landlines of buildings with a phone system that required them to dial 8 or 9 or some series of numbers before they get an outside line. So I guess my question is, if we have the software, they could bypass their internal system and just dial 911 and it would reach us? Is that what I'm hearing?
It's our own phone system. If we are in our offices dialing 911, we need to get to dispatch and we need to provide them with exact information of the location where we are, what room, what floor, from our schools, from our city hall, from our safety. And we don't have that yet in the safety complex. We have it in City Hall, we have it in in the Council on Aging, and we need to bring that to safety. In addition, we are using copper lines, and we know copper lines are going to disappear, so we're moving the system to a voice over IP system that makes it more reliable, that makes it easy to expand lines. Now we are constrained by the number of lines. We have some officers that don't have extensions because our system doesn't allow to increase number of lines. So it's going to position us in a place where we should be, where we can grow and add new lines and be in compliance with the law.
Okay, so that would just be for city buildings then?
Only for the safety complex.
Only for the public safety complex?
Yes. Okay. So City Hall is in compliance, Council on Aging is in compliance.
And how about the schools?
I don't have that information. I believe one of the schools is, the new school is, the other one is not.
Okay.
But
that's good to know. Good to know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Kuczynski? You're muted.
Muted.
What I said was, wow. What Councilor Rist had said this should be done yesterday is absolutely true. We need to have systems. But I also heard Councilor Rist describe a situation where we need to be able to identify the location of anyone calling in, and that just sent me reeling. Is this limited to the municipal building that we're talking about, the buildings that we're talking about, or are we talking about a more widespread problem?
yeah, each phone machine, each device that connects into the internet or anywhere has a MAC address that identifies the device. We want to attach each device that we own, every phone that the city owns in the safety or the schools, that unique device to the location. So when a 911 call is made and breaks for whatever reason, we know where that came from.
Thank you.
It's only our own numbers.
Thank you. Councilor Rist?
I think I misunderstood this. This isn't to do with 911 calls coming from the outside. This has to do with 911 calls coming from the public safety building and all the landlines that are in that building and the location of that call within the building. Mm-hmm. Right
exactly.
Now, the City Hall and I guess the Council on Aging has that ability where if someone calls from an office in City Hall, they know which office it's going to be. Correct me if I'm wrong, Corinne. But public safety doesn't have that.
That's exactly. We need to know that if a phone came from room 201, the officers know where that is located, and they don't get into a building and try to figure out what that is.
So I misunderstood, because when this was presented originally, I thought it meant that someone dialing 911 in the community, you don't know where that location is. That has nothing to do with this. This is just a public safety building and our landlines within that building. Am I correct?
Yeah, and it's law, and we should comply with that.
Okay. Thank you for correcting me. And I'm sorry, Councilor Kwasinski, I misspoke because I misunderstood.
Councilor Derby?
And that's what I was going to say. I think that the city's probably had E911 capabilities probably for at least 2 decades.
Yes.
Right. And so, but I am curious, do we know if, and this is a little off topic, do we know if our public safety dispatch is capable of locating cell phones when they call 911? And it's related to this topic because if someone was in their office and they call 911 on their cell phone, do you know that off the top of your head? If not, that's fine.
Yes, absolutely. Not currently. Okay. Not currently. The new system that the City Council invested on that is going to come live will have that ability. Not only the ability to locate the number, and cell phones don't have a location, so you need a geo tag to understand what it is. But the officers are going to be able to connect to that phone and follow that phone in case the phone gets disconnected and the user is running or escaping or hiding. The officers are going to be able to follow that phone and then use that phone video as a camera. And the video capturing that phone is going to be transferred directly to the police software system. So it's going to be protected. So we are not there yet, but we're walking into that very soon.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other councilor? Anyone from the public have any questions or comments?
No pressure.
No pressure, JP.
Spotlight's on you.
And Councilor Rist.
I move that the full council approve a supplemental appropriation of $7,500 to be transferred from free cash, to be transferred to the radio, telephone, and other communication accounts for the purpose of upgrading the phone system in the safety complex to comply with the regulatory requirements. The initial cost of the upgrade is approximately $7,500, which includes the purchase of the necessary desk phones and other equipment. The monthly fees, which are around $640, would be similar to or slightly less than our current fees. After reviewing vendor proposals, we found that the most cost-effective option is TPX through Valley Communications, the same provider we are using for City Hall and Council on Aging.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the supplemental appropriation of $7,500 to upgrade the phone system at the public safety complex. Any further discussion? Councilor Kosinski.
Well, the question comes to my mind about lifespan of units and systems before they. I understand the new systems are coming on. New systems are coming online. How long will it be before the system that we are investing in will become either obsolete or be overtaken by something else we're using or buying? Is it 6 months? Is it a year? Is it 3 or 4 years down the road?
Karen?
Our current system is not compliant with the law now. Copper lines, we believe in the next 2-3 years are going to be discontinued as the main lines. They are going to continue some of those copper lines, but we know that the move is to internet, to voice over IP. So voice over IP is the future, is the latest technology you can be on phones. So I think it positions us for the future. And now we are not compliant with the law, and that's the main. And upgrading the system in copper lines, I should have mentioned this, is more expensive than moving to on voice over IP.
Thank you.
That's why we didn't consider that as an option.
Thank you, Karen. Any other councilor? Seeing none, Barbara?
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Motion passes. I will take a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close this public hearing. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara?
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Aye.
Connie Denham. Salem Derby.
Aye.
Motion passes. Correspondence? All right, JP's back. I just want to apologize with the people that are watching us, that we have some technical difficulties, but we're back, and we are still in reports, appointments. Councilor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. President. The appointment committee last met on March 23rd to discuss the appointment of Mariam Ansara to the Community Relations Committee with a term expiration date of December 31st, 2024. Most of you on this committee, council and people in the community know Mary in some capacity or another. Her work in the community has spanned many years with her engagement with the Massachusetts Peace Association, the Easthampton Community Coalition, and her foundational advocacy that eventually led to the creation of the Community Relations Committee that we are discussing appointing her to. Most recently, I had the opportunity to collaborate with her and the mayor to issue a proclamation in support of a Christmas truce on the invasion of Ukraine, which was coupled with an interfaith gathering in Amherst. I do regret that Mary has left for this evening. The meeting went on a little bit longer. She was here in attendance to answer any questions, but I would like to say that the appointment committee unanimously recommended her appointment to the full city council with a vote of 2-0. So if there are no questions, I move to appoint Miriam Ansara to the Community Relations Committee with a term expiration date of December 31st, 2024.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the appointment. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara?
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Aye.
Connie Denham. Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Motion passes. Councilor Riley?
Thank you, Mr. President. The appointment committee will meet next on April 13th at 6 p.m. in Conference Room 2, which is this space right here behind City Council chambers, and thus concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilor. Ordinance, Councilor Derby.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I do want to just make an announcement that ordinance will be meeting next Tuesday,
The 11th.
which is the 11th, at 6 p.m. And we are going to be in conference room B, which I believe is downstairs. I'm trying to zoom back to my agenda here to see if I need any extensions.
No, you do not.
And I don't think we do. Thank you. We do have some new business, but I will get to that under new business. And I just want to just give people an update that we have asked for the safe and fair access to legally protected reproductive and gender affirming healthcare services be sent to the city attorney.
I'm still waiting.
And we're still waiting. So I just wanted to make sure that people understood that. And I think, well, I might as well get some extensions while we're at it here. So I'd like to extend the ordinance review final report. Let's get 90 days on that, please. And let's get 90 days to...
That's fine, but we can...
I just want to get
Yeah.
proactive because I'm not going to be at the next meeting.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay.
So, and then 90 days for the section 6.23.
Second.
Right, so we have a motion and a second to extend the Ordinary Review Committee final report and the section 6-23 for 90-day extension. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara?
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Aye.
Connie Denham. Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thus concludes.
Thank you, Councilor Derby. Property, Councilor Kwasinski.
We do have a report that has been given to us. I believe we'll be taking that up for new business. That's on the school reuse. My only mention is that we're tentatively looking for doing this as rapidly as possible. April 20th on a Thursday at 6 looks like the counselors can make it. I'll be coordinating with the planner to see if we can do that, and if the consultant it would be available. But that's what is on the property agenda forthcoming.
Councilor Kwasinski, yeah, that meeting will be remote, right?
That meeting will be remote.
Okay, thank you. That concludes?
That concludes. And again, the date that I mentioned is tentative. We still have to coordinate.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Rules, Councilor Rist.
Yes, I have to extend a couple of items, but I wanted to let the council know that I'm waiting on the city attorney to come back with his thoughts on our charter changes. So I will announce a rules meeting when we get those back so we can deal with that and the items on new business. I'd like to make a motion to extend for 60 days the following items: the draft suggestions on charter changes, vacancy in the office of the mayor, 4-year term, charter amendment section 210, as well as biodiversity, environment, and ecological sustaining committee. I'll do 60 days on all 3 of them, even though we should be done with them sooner than that.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to do 60-day extension of those 3 items. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara?
Dan Rist.
Aye.
Connie Denham. Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Motion passes. Councilor Rist.
That concludes.
Thank you, Councilor Rist. New business, Councilor Derby.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a request for immediate action regarding public health gun violence resolution, and I will pass that to Councilor Denham.
Councilor Denham.
Thank you very much, Vice President. So the council for several years now, and more recently a few months, have been talking about a response to the increased number of incidences of gun violence and the massive amounts of lost life as a result of this increased tragic issue. And now you have states like Florida, which have completely removed any requirements for permits. And that just really opens up the door for more individuals who, quite honestly, maybe shouldn't have guns, or you have incidents of people who are responding to incidences through grievance or rage, etc. And so we've proposed this, President Gomez and I have proposed this resolution as a foundational point of being able to hopefully prevent gun violence in the community, but its intent is to define gun violence as a public health issue in the hopes that our city departments, our city committees will collaborate to work on this issue more intentionally. Again, it is a foundational point, so other people can create, develop additional resolutions, but these are the core elements of what we are saying are the causes and the root causes and what they are fueled by in order to be more effective in our response to that. And so that's really just kind of the introduction of this, but also President Gomez, I'm sure you have words as well.
And thank you, Councilor. Before I make a statement, I just want to ask if any of the councilors are against of voting this tonight.
I only have one question about it. I can't remember why, but I feel like maybe it was a month or two ago. We had a gun resolution and it was voted down. So what was the change to reintroduce
I'm gonna
it?
clarify that we never voted down. We just removed it from the agenda. So we never take a vote in favor or against it. The reason why was Councilor Denham brings some concerns about some particular language at the resolutions, especially I remember, and I'm sorry if I misinterpreted what you said that day, but I was at the meeting when you was concerned that particular resolution identify countries or people of color be more aggressive than any other community. I think that was a legit concern, and we couldn't find a point or time to start working on something together to present something better. I have to say that what Councilor Denham, this is the first step of future collaboration of any other resolutions, including about gun violence. This is just to recognize that the gun violence is a public health issue, and this is the first step.
Okay.
And that's why we bring in the resolution some information about what is happening and what is the cause of this.
Okay.
But again, I just want to, for clarification, we never voted down that last time.
That was I misspoke on that, but yes, that was why I was asking. So thank you for that background. Thank you.
Councilor Kaczynski?
If I may ask, the practical effect of the resolution, the language regarding a public health crisis seems to be language that we haven't included before, and I'm wondering what is the thinking on how that will make a difference now and what the future will bring regarding declaring this public health crisis.
Thank you, Councilor Kaczynski. I think the resolution is kind of pretty clear. Why? Especially the first paragraph would say Islamophobia, misogynist, homophobia, transphobia, white supremacists, anti-Semitic, racism, That is really specific here than wasn't in any other resolution before. And I think that's what we're stating in this resolution is we want to be clear that the gun violence in this country is a health issue. And we stated really well at the resolution. I don't know if Councilor Dena want to add something else.
Yeah, I think when you look at the incidences that of gun violence that are happening in schools in particular, many of them, the vast majority of them, are committed by men. In many instances, they are white men. And I think that we treat this as individual incidences, and in fact, they're not, right? There is something happening within our society, within our communities, that is fueling people's cause or rationale for why they are acting so violently. And if you look at, and they're outlined here, many of these are intentional of the communities that they are targeting. And so if as a community we don't look at those as reasons why people are choosing the communities that they are attacking, then we are missing the point. So it's not just about people's access to guns, right? It is also about who is being targeted and why they are being targeted. And so this resolution, it outlines for us why those things are occurring. And again, in a community that is predominantly white, that has an impact. And if you look at what occurred in Buffalo, New York, right? You had a white male go into a grocery store in a community that is largely African American because of that person's beliefs about that holds in terms of white supremacy, etc., right? This is not just about protecting children in our schools. This is also about making sure that residents in our community do not leave this community and go and inflict pain, suffering, death on other communities, right? And so, again, this is intended for our departments to think strategically about what do we do within our community to ensure that both we are safe, right, but also that we're not inflicting harm on other communities. And so that, I think, is the intent behind this resolution, so that we not only try to be more proactive, but we are also holding ourselves accountable and making sure that we're also doing what we can to make sure that people aren't inflicting harm on others.
Councilor Kosinski?
I think that those are all very worthy efforts that I think expand our thinking on the subject, because the subject is horrific. We need to look for solutions, and if defining the concerns are by making it a public health crisis gives some wider or greater impact or greater understanding of the root causes, the reasons, the thinking, whys, answers to questions, I think we're making a great stride forward in what it holds.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors? Seeing none, Councilor Denham?
So this is in the form of a motion, so it's a public health gun violence resolution. Whereas mass shootings are a public health crisis fueled by racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, and white supremacy, as well as a lack of resources dedicated to a robust mental health system. And the United States has experienced hundreds of public mass shootings in churches, schools, concerts, and movie theaters, including On August 5th, 2012, 6 people were shot and killed at a Sikh temple in Oak Creek, Wisconsin. On December 14th, 2012, 27 individuals, including 20 children, were shot and killed at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut. On July 17th, 2015, 9 Black Americans were shot and killed at the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina. On December 12th, 2015, 14 people were shot and killed at the Inland Regional Center in San Bernardino, California. On June 12th, 2016, 49 individuals, 90% of whom were Hispanic, were shot and killed at Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida, in what is considered the deadliest attack on LGBTQ+ people in the United States history. On September 16, 2016, 12 people were shot and killed at the headquarters of the Naval Sea Systems Command inside Washington Naval Yard in southeast Washington, D.C. On October 1st, 2017, 58 people were shot and killed and 546 others were injured in Las Vegas, Nevada, in what is known to be the deadliest mass shooting in United States history committed by a single individual. On November 5th, 2017, 27 people were shot and killed at a church in Sutherland Springs, Texas. On February 14th, 2018, 17 students and staff were killed at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. On October 27th, 2018, 11 persons were shot and killed at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. On August 3rd, 2019, 23 people were shot and murdered during an act of domestic terrorism in El Paso, Texas, considered one of the deadliest attacks on a Hispanic community in modern American history. On May 14th, 2022, 10 Black Americans were shot and killed in a racially motivated rampage at a supermarket in Buffalo, New York. On May 24th, 2022, 19 students and 2 teachers were shot and killed at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. And on March 27th, 2023, 3 children and 3 adults were shot and killed at Covenant School in Nashville, Tennessee. Whereas the city recognizes the root causes of gun violence includes grievance, despair, and anger. Whereas every day more than 110 Americans are killed by gun violence, alongside more than 200 who are shot and wounded, and on average there is nearly 16,000 gun homicides every year. Whereas gun violence has become the leading cause of death for children and adolescents in the United States, according to the latest mortality rates by the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention. Whereas Americans are 26 times more likely to die by gun homicide than people of higher income countries. And whereas gun violence prevention is more important than ever as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to exacerbate gun violence after more than 2 years of increased gun sales, increased calls to suicide and domestic violence hotlines, and an increase in gun violence. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the wrong hands and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep our children safe. And whereas in an average year, at least 10,300 hate crimes involve a firearm every year, more than 28 every day in the United States. And whereas communities of color are disproportionately impacted by gun violence. And whereas neighborhoods suffering from gun violence are the same areas that lack economic opportunity, adequate infrastructure, access to quality schools, and housing opportunities. And whereas every month approximately 70 women are shot and killed by an intimate partner. And whereas intimate partner violence is a serious public health problem, and rates of severe physical violence and violence inflicted with a firearm is predominantly experienced by women with male partners. And whereas 92% of all women killed with guns in high-income countries in 2015 were from the United States. And whereas 16% of gay and lesbian youth, 11% of bisexual youth, and 29% of transgendered youth have been threatened with a weapon on school property, according to the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. And whereas in 2016, the American Medical Association adopted policy calling gun violence in the United States a public health crisis, requiring a comprehensive public health response and solutions. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Easthampton City Council recognizes gun violence as a public health crisis in the United States, and 2, supports the resolution drafted, introduced, and adopted by other cities, localities, and states across the nation declaring gun violence a public health crisis or emergency.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the resolution of the public health violence resolution from Easthampton City Council. I just, before take any comment from any of the councilors, after listening or reading this resolution, if you don't want to cry, I guess you're not human. This gun violence is serious, and we have to take it seriously. We have a motion and a second for the discussion. Seeing none, Barbara?
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Yes, for all humanity.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Aye.
Motion passes. Councilor Derby.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we have a letter from the School Reuse Recommendation Committee. I move that be sent to property.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move the elementary school reuse recommendation to property. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara?
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Motion passes. Councilor Derby.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have mayoral appointments of Benjamin Berger, Affordable and Fair Housing, term expiration 12/31/2023. John Casey Douglas, Cultural Council, term expiration 4/10/2026. I move to be sent to Appointments Subcommittee. Appointments
Second.
Committee.
We have a motion and a second to send those to one appointment and one reappointment to the Appointments Committee. Any further discussion?
Just one minor point of clarification for people to understand. Typically, when these go to for reappointment for December 31st is typically when we see the expiration date. This committee is tied to the Mass Cultural Council. They do things a little bit differently. The appointments, the reappointment dates happen on the anniversary of their initial appointment. That's why we see April on the date, just to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councilor? Barbara?
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Motion passes. Councilor Derby.
We have a request to review LED sign and electronic message center ordinances. I move to send that to Ordinance Committee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move the request to review the LED signs and electronic messages. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara?
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye, motion passes. Councilor Derby.
We have a request to review an ordinance regarding the use of civilian traffic control monitors. I move to send to ordinance.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move the request to review the ordinance regarding the use of civilian traffic control monitors to the Ordinance Committee. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara?
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Motion passes. Councilor Derby.
We have a request to amend City Council rules, Rule 5F, public comment. I move to send that to Rules and Governmental Relations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move to rules the request of the amend City Council rules, Rule 5F, public comment. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara?
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Motion passes.
We have a request to amend traffic rules and orders to add a school zone in the vicinity of Mountain View School on Park Street. I move to send to public safety.
We have a motion and a second for the request to amend traffic and rules and order to add a school zone to the public safety. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara.
Dan Rist.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Homer Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Motion passes. Councilor Rist.
We have 5 items which I will move to finance once I'm done. The first is an interpartal transfer. The amount requested is $2,895.
985.
Well, okay, the appropriation request has 2895 on it. So, Mr. President, if you would, can I ask Hadel to tell us what number is the correct one?
Hadel is out of the call.
Oh, it's what's on the paper.
This one, not on the agenda? This is 2895, and this says 29, so I'm just.
No, go by the paper.
Go by the.
Okay, you
yes.
got it. So,
Can you please tell me how much is it?
2895, not 2895.
$895.
Boy, I should know that.
Okay, thank you.
Amount requested for the following interdepartmental transfer to be transferred from Election and Registration Computer Services, $2895, to be transferred to Technology Software, $2895, for the following purpose: the acquisition of a public records tracking database to assist in the day-to-day handling of public record requests. Proposal covers initial setup of the database and 3 months of maintenance and support. Annual fee going forward is $595. The second interdepartmental transfer is the amount requested is $2402, to be transferred from City Attorney Professional Services, $2402, to be transferred to City Attorney Professional Services, $2402, to provide vote to pay prior fiscal year bill for City Attorney out of current fiscal year. It's an old bill. The next is a supplemental appropriation. The amount requested is $30,000, to be transferred from free cash, $30,000, to be transferred to the legal department, $30,000. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: legal costs billed for fiscal year '23. The next is a supplemental appropriation of $90,000, to be transferred from capital stabilization, $90,000, to be transferred to FY23 public safety site improvement, $90,000, for the following purpose. Upgrade audio-visual equipment and technology in the joint training room for public safety, community room, conference room for other city department training. AV equipment and technology in this room is over 15 years old, and the ability to get replacement parts non-existent. This room serves as the emergency or operations center for the entire city to enable communication and coordination for large-scale emergencies throughout the city. The requested amount is based on a quote received in coordination with the city IT department. The last supplemental appropriation, the amount requested is $200,000, to be transferred from free cash, $200,000, to be transferred to the school intergovernmental account, $200,000, for the purpose of covering a deficit in the school department's vocational tuition account. I move that these 5 aforementioned items be sent to the Finance Committee for review and also to be set for public hearing on April 19th in these chambers.
April 17th.
Second.
Is no April 17th?
Aye.
Is April 19th?
19th.
17th? It's 19th? Yeah. So we have a motion and a second to move to the interdepartmental transfer and 3 supplementary application and to schedule a public hearing for April 19 at 6:15 at this chamber. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Barbara.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
JP?
Aye, sorry.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
And Dan Rist.
Motion passes. Look like we do everything we have on the agenda. We'll take a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Move.
I have a question. Were we going to set a public hearing for the school reuse or not tonight? We didn't set that.
Oh, right.
May 17th or whatever that day
Yes.
is. Is it May 17th?
Councilor Kosinski, do you believe that we can schedule a public hearing for the second meeting of May for the reuse of the school buildings? So that way we can do it now.
I would certainly think that we could. That's why we're going to be meeting in April. And I don't see any problem with moving this forward as rapidly as possible and meeting that target date.
Perfect. Let's do it now.
The goal is to meet that target date.
Do you want to make the motion?
I would rather have had our first meeting under our belts, but no, that's fine. Let's do it if you want to wait until then. I move to hold a public hearing on the school reuse for the second meeting in May.
17.
Second.
We
May
have,
7th.
Yeah, May
May
17th.
17
Yep,
at 6:15 PM.
thank you. We have a motion and a second to schedule a public hearing for May 17 at 6:15 at the chambers. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Barbara?
Salem Derby.
Aye.
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Motion passes. Now, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Barbara?
Omar Gomez.
Aye.
Tom Peak.
Aye.
Brad Riley.
Aye.
Dan Rist.
Aye.
Connie Denham.
Aye.
Salem Derby.
Aye.
JP Kaczynski.
Aye.
Motion passes. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. See you, AP. Good to see you.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.